Okay, we have another beautiful Range Rover here. These are really quite stunning vehicles, and I can see the attraction of people in buying them. The suspension on this one is very rigid, and to be fair, when it comes to these vehicles, I wouldn't waste your time getting one unless it did have very firm suspension, because if you've got a big, slow, sluggy diesel and you go around a corner, the suspension is dreadful. You almost feel like you're about to fall off a perch. The interior of this car is, well, quite gorgeous really. It's a lot better than a lot of cars on the market. Very, very suave, nicely laid out, and very basic and elementary. There's nothing confusing about it at all. You've got your heating controls, you've got your sat nav. The dials in front of you are the most uncomplicated ones I've ever seen. You look at it straight away, you can determine your speed without any distraction at all. Same goes for the rev counters. If anything, the temperature control is a bit sort of hard to read, and maybe the fuel gauges as well. They probably could have been a bit clearer on that respect, but the speed dial, rev dial, fantastic. The instrumentation, layout, superb. Gear stick, fantastic. Everything is just designed for comfort. Nice big chunky armrests. The seats are fantastic. Now, the side mirrors on this vehicle are enormous, and they're at the perfect height, so 10 out of 10 for that, because a lot of cars, the mirrors are right down the bottom. You got to bloody bend down to look at them. It's a pain in the arse. Rear view mirror is actually completely obstructed. It's not an enormous back window for a vehicle this size, which is quite surprising. There's also a wire cage and the headrests, which totally block the rear screen. I mean, okay, you can see if there's a vehicle coming up behind you, but you know, it's not clear. What I do like about these vehicles is the dashboard on it. It's got that beautiful stitched upholstery, and it's something you see in some of the Mercs, Ferraris and Aston Martins. It really does look the part. Whether it's durable or not, I don't know, but who cares, it looks the part. This is a bling vehicle. These vehicles obviously cost a lot of money to run, but they just look the part. They're very, very stylish, and I think they live up to their reputation. Now, the steering wheel on this is relatively large, but it's by no means cumbersome. A lot of controls on the steering wheel. You've got your phone, the Bluetooth, and you've got other things like for the trip, setting the trip on your odometer. Steering is actually very agile, very light and very agile. Okay, you might think, well, it's got power steering. Of course it is, but it doesn't always work that way. It's very responsive, the steering too. Very responsive. Now, one thing that is immediately obvious with this vehicle is the brakes. The brakes are absolutely fantastic. They are absolutely amazing. This thing could stop an articulated truck in its tracks. What I've found with a lot of Range Rovers is you feel like you're going to fall off the chair, especially around corners, and you almost feel like you're sitting on the edge. Or anything I could compare it to is sitting on a tractor. But with this particular model, I am feeling really quite laid back in the chair. There's no problems going around the corner. I've got nice big armrests. I've got the big stocky door card here. I feel like I'm sitting in a cockpit of a plane. This is a really very comfortable vehicle indeed. Now, in terms of performance, being a diesel, a lot of people tend to think, well, they're going to be slow and sluggish, but this is not the case with a lot of diesels nowadays. I mean, immediately accelerating past the vehicle there, and there's no lag in the kick down at all. The vehicle is responsive, and it pulls away nicely. This is an amazing vehicle. There's no doubt in my mind that this vehicle would be absolutely fantastic in towing, whether it be a caravan, a boat, or even another vehicle. It's such a powerful car. I don't even know whether it's right to call it a car. Actually, it's a monster, but it's a refined monster. It's an absolutely superb vehicle. If you're thinking about buying a Range Rover, I would really do your homework on those vehicles, because they vary so much. I mean, if you see them charging down the motorway, there are a lot of similarities. They do look very, very similar, but the differences in driving some of these Range Rovers is like the Alpha and the Omega. As I mentioned earlier, you can get some particular diesel models that are so awful at cornering, you actually feel like you're going to fall out of the bloody car when it goes around the corner. Whereas if you get something like the HSC Sports Supercharged with the 5-litre V8, the suspension on it is fantastic. It's like you're in a sporty saloon, and of course it's very, very fast. Same as with this one, it's got very rigid suspension, and because of the vehicle's height and the vehicle's size, you would be ill-advised to buy one without the strong suspension. Otherwise, driving around in a great big vehicle like this becomes very tiring, and the whole luxury element of it goes straight out the window and is totally diminished. Stick to a sport suspension or a very hard, firm suspension. You won't regret it. You will regret it if you don't. Trust me, I get to drive a lot of these vehicles, and some of them are absolutely awful to drive. Another reason for saying that, apart from comfort, is the fact that if you're driving one of these vehicles down a motorway at speed anywhere over 50 miles an hour, and you have to swerve into another lane, in a vehicle at this size, over that speed, there's a very good chance of you going over. So you want to be in control of that vehicle as much as you possibly can. You want to be a total cause and not effect. And you're only going to get that opportunity and that potential out of a vehicle like this if you have a rigid, firm suspension, because otherwise the car will boat and swing and bounce all over the place like a floppy breast. So look, do your research on the Range Rovers, decide what you want one for. Is it for the road? Is it for the off-road? Is it for a bit of both? Stay away from the sluggish diesels with the soft suspension. This is a fantastic vehicle. It's one of the best vehicles on the market at the moment. Certainly, if you do your homework, you certainly will not be disappointed, and you'll look the part too. They are fantastic vehicles, and I'd recommend the vehicle to anybody.